So I think this video is going to be pretty short, and let's just kind of block in the overall length of our animation. We have this nice explosion, but in the original video there's an explosion, a scene change, and then another explosion. So let's get the scene change and final explosion in. I'm going to do that by basically cleaning up this composition a bit. Like, I'm pretty happy with this series of explosions, so I'm going to pack these all into their own composition. So I'm going to select this bottom one, hold shift, select that one, go composition, or let's see, maybe it's a little different. Okay, go to layer, pre-compose, or I often use control shift C or command shift C. And so it's going to say, what do you want to name this? And we'll just call these, I'm going to call these shockwaves 1. So now there's a new layer called shockwaves. If I double click into it, we can see the shockwaves here. We can edit them, but you can edit them in here and then go back to your, so it's like a folder within a folder, really, or it's a composition within a composition. So we have, and maybe one thing I might change is I'm gonna just select all these, hit U, and I want to move them off closer to the beginning. And so I can't see all these keyframes all at once, so I could scroll down, but if you hit the tilde key, it's above tab, it looks like a little squiggly line. You can go to full screen, and the first keyframe I think is right here, so I'm just going to drag all those a little bit earlier. And so now the animation will start right off the bat. Okay, so we have our first pop, and then we want a scene change. So I had this awesome background 2 created. I'm going to drag that on top. So now it's hiding our awesome background 1. I'm going to hit P to bring up the position properties. You can see all the properties by opening these drop-down menus. Transform. We can change the anchor point, which is now centered right there. We can change position, the scale. You see. You can change the rotation just by clicking and dragging, or clicking and inputting a number, or the opacity. But I just want the position for the moment, so I'm going to hit P, and I'm just going to click and drag on the X, and I'm going to move it off the frame. So now we have our pop, and then let's say I want, let's say I want the, right after the pop, I moved it off frame. I'm going to set a keyframe with this stopwatch. I'm going to go ahead 10 frames by holding shift and page down. And then I'll set this, I just have it memorized to be centered. Well, if you didn't have it memorized, let's say you were having a hard time making it cover, let's say there's this little annoying piece. An easy way to fix that is just scale this up. So I'm going to hit S to bring up scale. If I wanted to see scale and position, shift P, or if I just hit P, or let's say P and then shift S. So basically holding shift and adding, you can add properties if you know their shortcuts. So I know rotation is R, shift R, P and shift S. So I would just maybe scale this up a bit. And we still, so now I'm seeing it there, so I'm just going to click this keyframe and drag it off. So we still have that linear interpolation problem that looks kind of boring. So I'm going to select these. You hit F9. I'm going to say right-click, Easy Ease. And now we have a keyframe. We have like a scene change. It seems to come in a little late for my taste. Also, the interpolation to me looks a little boring. We'll get into like changing, customizing it a bit later. Not this animation, just a little later in the class. So we have explosions. Oftentimes we think of things linearly, like explosion is the first thing, the scene change is the second, but with motion graphic, you kind of want them to overlap a little bit. Like there is separation, but if you overlap things quick enough, that's when you get that kind of sensory overload. Also, these two colors kind of clash. So I'm just going to change the background to be, I'm going to click this awesome background. It's not a shape, so I can't just go to fill. I have to go to layer, solid settings, or control shift Y. And I'm going to just make this, I guess like that. It doesn't really matter, but so we have that, and maybe make it a little slower. Okay, so we have that, and then I could just duplicate this shockwaves layer and slide it down, and actually that looks fine to me, except for it looks slightly repetitive. So what I like to do is go into the shockwaves layer. Let me I'm going to select all the layers because I can't see them all with Command A, and then I'm just going to close that top one, and then they all close. So I'm going to select these layer and hit Control or Command C to copy, and then go to this the main composition, and then Control V, and it copied those. And now I'm just going to bring these, where do I want them? So they pop, change, so they should start being there. But now, since I brought these in, I can now like I can move them around a little bit just so we have some variety. And I think the colors are looking actually pretty nice by my eye. I think for some reason if you just use like pale colors, things look pretty nice. Maybe if somebody knows color theory, they can explain that. Maybe it's just like if you're afraid to take a stand with a bold color, be pale, and nobody will criticize you, maybe. So I just duplicated one and just thought, hey, I'll scale it down really tiny because that's cute. Let me add another one just for the heck of it. Oh, yeet. It gets tricky. So if I just scroll wheel in and then hit the middle mouse button and drag, I can more clearly see where I'm going. Okay, so, but let's just say the colors weren't working for you, and that's actually looking not so good to me. Okay, that's fine. That's doable. A trick is you could just, instead of, well, the easiest way right now is just to click the layer and change the fill color. But if you're duplicating things and you want it like another way to just briefly or quickly change colors, if you go to Effects Presets and look up Colorama, and usually the first time you search something, it takes a second to kind of like load in all the effects. But let's see what, okay, I'm just seeing what outline I'm looking at. So I want to do this. So I'm going to drag the Colorama onto that. It should automatically open effects. And I can blend with the original, and just by dragging the amount of how much I want it blended, you can change the color. So now, for example, if I duplicated this layer, it duplicates it with the effect on, and then I can just blend with original to a different amount, and yeah, so I'm just going to keep mine like as overloaded as possible. But you don't have to, because this is kind of getting crazy. So now I want to clean things up, I'm going to hold Shift, select all these. I'm going to do Control Shift C, or you can do go up to Layer, Pre-Compose, and I'll call this Shockwave 2. So now we have so far a pretty clean composition, and we have things kind of, well, how would I say it? Kind of like timed out or blocked in. Okay, but yeah, I do see like there were some mistakes there. So yeah, that's why you got to be careful. I'm going to just say that's an unfortunate mistake, but the solution is, you go in here like, oh, there's that circle. For some reason, I guess I shouldn't have chosen 1. I should have chosen like 10. Huh. Oh well. You can click that. I'm just going to fix this on mine, but yeah.